There's a new kid in the block and it's called Moza, and they're coming into the sim racing market with a bang. They're not starting from the bottom, they're going directly into the high end with direct drives and a whole ecosystem. But here's the problem. What started with a normal review process, it ended up not being quite so stick around to learn more. But while you're there, a disclaimer, the Moza R16 and everything you're gonna see for review today was sent by Moza for review. I also have a fan attack, affiliate link, and affiliate links below for other brands, so that might make you think that I'm skewing this one way or the other. That is not the case, all thoughts are my own. This is my own discovery process. But as always with any review, you should take this with a grain of salt. Moza comes into sim racing as a new company to the market. However, they're not a new company at all. Moza has been in the videography industry for some years, creating mainly gimbals and videography cameras. This experience is absolutely unrelated to sim racing in terms of what sim racing equipment is concerned. The takeaway from this is that in terms of equipment design, they aren't exactly new. If their experience of hardware and software translates well to sim racing is something else entirely. Moza is coming with two direct drive bases, the R16 and 21 with 16 and 21 Nm peak respectively, a button box with various types of wheels attached, a screen, and some pedals. For this review, I have the R16 direct drive, the round Alcantara wheel, and the screen. The R16 wheelbase is 999 pounds. If you want more power, the R21 will be 1299. The button box and wheel is $549, and also the screen is $299. That's quite a lot of dosh for a new company coming into the space. And at this point, you're probably asking yourself, is it worth it? Don't worry, you're not the only one. This is the Moza R16, and the wheelbase, despite having a weird look, it's actually quite small. It's just slightly wider than a DD1, but about 5 centimeters shorter in height if you exclude, of course, this monitor. I'm always mentioning form factor as something important due to monitor positioning, and this package is excellent in that regard. I know the design is going to be divisive, but I understand the choice of design and colors too. They want obviously something saying, you know what, this is a Moza, this is ours, deal with it. In some way I understand it, in some way I actually like they went that way, and I do enjoy the orange after a while, despite the color choice being a bit out there, of course. In terms of specs, this is the 16 Nm R16, but even though it says 16 Nm, this thing does not have more torque than, for example, a Fanatec DD1, because this is 16 Nm peak, and the Fanatec DD1 has 20 Nm peak and 15 sustain. So I'm not sure how much is the sustained torque on this. I suppose it will be lower, and I think it's going to be lower because the power supply does have less amperage output in it. In terms of the build quality, the wheelbase doesn't have any obvious faults, at least exterior wise. It's well built, and to install it, it just uses a 4-bolt pattern that is similar to a Fanatec DD1. So 2 in the back and 2 in the front. I believe that most sim rigs, modern ones, will have that mounting pattern just there. At least mine had. But there's a cradle if you want to install this on an 80/20. I wasn't sent one because I didn't have the need for that. When it's attached, the wheel is very, very much rock solid connected to your sim rig. The back doesn't have many options, so essentially you have the power button, you have the 6-pin power supply, then you have the USB-A, and then you have an emergency brake, which is still not available in the store, and I'm not too sure when it's going to be. Now, while the exterior is well built and looks very nice and has a very nice quick release and everything seems solid, I'm not too sure about the internals though. As two wheelbases that were sent to Boosted Media and DaveCam for review did have issues, and they were sent back. I suspect my wheel is a production test as well, because I see some use marks all around, namely over here at the quick release where it was already scratched before a use, and there are some other use marks here and there. Furthermore, and I think this is the most important part, I've encountered some electrical gremlins in this wheel. So we're gonna start with the power supply, which, you know, at first glance looks like a DD1 SemiCube 2. It even has the same shape, same LED over here, round LED. And when you look at the back, it seems similar until you look at the maximum rated output. The DD1 PSU is marked, for example, at 36 volts at 13 amps max, while the Moza is 36 volts at 10 amps max, which I think it's why the reason this does not have more torque than a DD1, because it has a lower power PSU. But then you'd expect that a wheelbase would take the higher rated power supply and then not use, of course, all the power that it can deliver in terms of current, but it will not accept it. And if you connect the power supply, whatever it is, to the wheelbase, and if it's already connected to the socket, you're going to see a very large and very furious electrical arc, which I did not like. So if you buy this, make sure you connect your wheelbase while the socket is off. One of the electrical issues that I'm finding is whenever you take the wheel off and you start rotating the shaft, you can hear a clicking sound, and you can see that the light starts also to pulse. Because of that, I'd expect the circuitry for power delivery and control to be inferior to the competition, and having spoken to Will from Boosted Media, he confirms issues with the internals, so when a review comes out, check it out. While the wheel looks good and actually well constructed from the outside, I'm not too sure about the reliability of it going to the future, considering what happened to Dave Cam, Boosted Media, and with the experience that I've had with this wheel. So talking about reliability in the future, I don't know, and saying this in the review, whatever way you cut it, it's really not a good look. Time for the wheel that I got for review. Excellent first look and impressions, but it has some details that fail it. First of all, I don't like Alcantara. That's, totally my fault. It just, I don't think it's something good to have in a sim racing wheel, but it's a personal taste. In terms of production, I think this is a pre-production unit because there are some parts over here at the left side that don't seem well glued to the structure of the wheel. The wheel is really, really comfortable when you pick it up. There is some large padding over here, and you understand later on why it does have a lot of padding. The button box is a showpiece, and in my opinion, almost perfect, and a lot of companies could learn from this. For the price, I don't think you can ask for much more. This is basically forged carbon. The materials chosen are great. There is really great clickiness from the buttons, including these ones over here, the glance ones and the view ones. This is really, really nice. I like these buttons, and the structure itself seems solid. And then you have the paddles. The top paddles are magnetic. Really good. I like the click. It's a bit too loud, but of course you can always put some rubber there. Some people might not like the length of the stroke. I'm fine with it. I think the wheel is comfortable. But then at the bottom we have, of course, the clutches, and the clutches are a bit loose. I'm not very fond of the stroke of it and the resistance. That's of course personal, but in terms of movement, this has a lot of movement, and it's likely due to the tightening or the tolerances from these bushings over here. It has a Rev Counter that works with a lot of sims, not all the sims, but it works. And then you have the quick release at the back that I think it's one of the best ones that I've seen thus far in sim racing. I really like how you can use it, and it feels like everything is well done and well connected. Lastly, the monitor. This is more of a pure optional piece. The steering wheel has like 4 screws, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. The installation, at least in theory, could be easy, but in practice is actually quite annoying. Try to get some magnetic tool, as the screws can be quite tricky to tighten. The monitor then is attached, and it will connect to 4 pins on the left. It reads well enough, and I think it has quite enough brightness, but this does really not connect to all sims, and in terms of faces that you can choose on a software, it's quite limited, and it doesn't really give you the information that you might need, and you cannot customize the information type, but it will give you more or less almost everything that you need. It does not work with all the sims. iRacing was just added, and honestly, it's just purely optional for $299. There are probably going to be better options that you can use with RaceHub. Before going to the driving experience, let's talk about the software for a bit. It's called Moza Pit House. It has a simple layout with everything more or less at hand. It needs to be started for the wheel to work, and at first glance it's easy enough to understand, though there are some choices with strange English translations, as well some strange percentage indicators. One interesting about this software is the choice of amount of rumbling granularity that can be tuned, such as ABS or carbs. If you want more of ABS and less of carbs, you can do that, or vice versa. The driving experience starts in the software, like in all direct drives. This is the point where it all starts, making the driving experience unfulfilling. My first interaction with the RX16 was on streams, and it wasn't really good. In reality, probably the worst first experience I have had since I've started to review wheels. And we are talking in Assetto Corsa, where most wheels get it at least right, even if not particularly well. What I had was lots and lots of dampening, including a rhythmic slip angle effect that made me question the meaning of life. Assetto Corsa Competizione felt better, but at most it was a meh. There was definitely more definition, but it's still dull. Then iRacing with IRFFB, and then yes, really good, maybe even at the Fanatec TT1 levels of force feedback granularity and preciseness wise. So it was obvious then that it was something wrong with the software. Moza did the software update that came with some fixes. After retrying it, the experience in Assetto was definitely better. Some more fiddling around made it something that I can say it is a direct drive experience, but it still lacks the definition, the front-end feel of the Fanatec direct drives I'm accustomed to. Competizione, on the other hand, adds no relative improvement, and iRacing was still even better. It did require some further refining, but the experience is definitely there. This resulted in a situation where I'm unable to properly drift. Because of the damping, the wheel rotation was never enough, even if turning it to 0 or increasing the wheel speed assist in the software. This is a strange position to be in, as driving in iRacing is genuinely fun, and I think the package as it is, if it had its issues corrected, it would be something to at the very least consider. The wheel itself, it's comfortable, the ergonomics are great for a wheel of this type, the monitor is crisp, everything feels engaged and tight, but this is just in iRacing. Everywhere else, it's just so underwhelming. The motor is strong and fun when unhindered. It has lots of strength, all the detail you might request, and has bags of torque, but ultimately, your experience is kneecapped by the software. Essentially, this is a story about the Moza R16. There are strokes of a great motor here, a great ecosystem, but it's undermined by software and electronics. There's no amount of pretty B-roll that can hide the amount of skeletons this wheelbase has that can be uncovered by just a 30-minute cursory look at it. If we leave that aside, which is no small feat, let's be honest, there's a question of pricing. The R16 is meant to compete with the DD1, which only does on paper, as the DD1 is able to output 20 Nm peak torque, while the R16 is stating 60 Nm peak torque details. At that price, I'm not too sure if it's worthwhile, even with a 2-year warranty in UK and Europe. As for the peripherals, even with the small flaws, they are good quality, and price-wise, I get it. I think it's fair. To be honest, I wish more companies supply the QR as good for their ecosystem out of the box as Moza does. Maybe the Moza ecosystem could be an option for Asia, where Fanatec and SimiCube are rare, but then again, SimMagic also exists, and they are contenders in Europe too. Even with all of these flaws, I think if Moza revises the software and the electronic side of the R21 and the R16 wheel, and then they bring a Formula wheel as well for their equipment, I think this is an ecosystem that you should be paying attention to. If you found this review useful, press that like and subscribe. Also, don't forget, gamer muscle should learn how to drive.